My eye on the clock. For Tuesday, June 2nd. Before we call the meeting to order, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Tom Moore.
Thanks, Deb. This is about a month late. Normally we do this in the beginning of May, but as with many things, we've been a little bit delayed. And before I talk about our 3 Teacher of the Year finalists, I want to thank Michelle Cashman, Tom Ledbrowski, and Gert Perry for their work in keeping the Teacher of the Year process going throughout this difficult time, because this is the Teacher of the Year system's been in place for a long time. This isn't a selection by administration. This is of and by the teaching community of West Hartford, as it should be. And so proud always to have these teachers represent all of the teachers in the district. And it's, you know, when you're talking about a teaching staff of well over 900 teachers, the number of candidates that could be here are, of course, many, but these represent a special group for us. So the Teacher of the Year process is rigorous and begins with nominations from other teachers. Nominees then submit a resume, an essay, and recommendations. Finalists then have a lesson videotaped, and the final 3 are then formally interviewed by the Teacher of the Year committee. The Teacher of the Year award recipient will be announced this Thursday, June 4th. The 2020 Teacher of the Year finalists are Lori DeRocher, Ann Grabowski, and Marnie Paulus. Now, normally I'd call each of you up and do a lovely presentation, but we can't do that as my kitchen isn't big enough for you to all be socially distanced here. But what I'd like to do is, after I speak about each one of you, if you could just kind of give a wave so everybody knows that's who I'm talking about, maybe a simple thank you. Our first Teacher of the Year finalist is Lori DeRocher. A passionate early child educator, Lori has been teaching for 30 years, and specifically kindergarten at Norfelt Elementary School for 24 years. Lori got her Bachelor of Science in Education from Southern Connecticut State University, as well as her Master's in Education from Southern. She's been a best program mentor. She's been a volunteer. She was a finalist for Teacher of the Year 17 years ago, and is just known throughout the Norfelt community as one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. So congratulations, Lori.
Thank you very much.
All right, our second candidate, Ann Grabowski. Ann taught kindergarten for 12 years at Smith STEM School before obtaining her master's degree to become a teacher of English as a second language, and has continued to support English language learners in this capacity for the past 3 years. She received her Bachelor of Science in Education from CCSU, then a Master of Arts in Reading and Language Specialization from University of St. Joseph's, and then a Master of Arts in Teacher of English as a Second Language from St. Joe's. She's been a 2-time speaker at Building Learning Communities Conference. She's a mentor at St. Joe's, past member of the Council for Equity and Diversity, and a multi-time West Hartford Foundation Grant Award recipient also. So, Ann, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And Marnie Paulus. Marnie teaches 6th grade science at King Philip Middle School, where she is also a team leader. She's been at KP since 2012, but also taught back at KP in the 90s. And then in between those assignments, also worked as a tutor. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from St. Anselm's, always a good degree to have when you're going into teaching, and a Master of Education from the University of St. Joseph's. She's a member of multiple committees at King Philip and across the district, member of the town-wide vertical science team, presented engineering tasks to district-wide science department, as well as being a constant presenter at building CSIs, presents how to succeed in middle school to incoming parents that are coming into King Philip, and received the King Philip Teacher of the Year Award. Congratulations, Marnie.
Thanks, everyone. It's an honor to be nominated and make it this far, so thank you.
Yes, let's all. They represent West Hartford exceptionally well, and really, it's a testament to our district that we can put forth 3 educators like this that are just tremendous. So with that, congratulations, and the official announcement is this Thursday, correct, Tom? Am I Thursday? Yes.
That is correct, yes.
All right, very good. So with that, thank you, everybody, and we can go on with our regular meeting. And you guys don't feel the need that you have to hang out at this meeting.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you all.
All right, with that, thank you, Tom, for sharing those finalists with us. At 7:05, I will call the meeting to order. And Cammie, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Aronson,
Present.
Mr. Payson,
Present.
Ms. Polun,
Here.
Dr. Steinberg,
Here.
Dr. Thomas Ferguson,
Here.
Ms. Wilcox,
Here.
Mr. Zdanowitz,
Here.
Student Representatives Kenya Ferreira,
Here.
and Isabella Gom.
Here.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to everyone, if you do have a question this evening, you put a question mark in the chat box, and I'll call on you at the appropriate time. Isabella, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I'd like to read a statement. Tonight, we grieve with our community and our country for the trauma and despair we are currently experiencing. This trauma is partially due to the months-long COVID-19 pandemic and the devastating losses it has brought with the death of thousands of Connecticut residents, the impact on our local economy, and the destruction of normalcy. Over the past week, our pain has deepened as we grapple with overt racism, continued police violence, and attacks on the First Amendment right to peaceably assemble. Notably, a right which was granted appropriately a few weeks ago to predominantly white protesters carrying assault weapons at state capitals across our country. The mission of West Hartford Public Schools is to inspire and prepare all students to reach their potential, to realize their potential, and enhance our global community. Tonight, we acknowledge that our success with this mission has been imbalanced. Quite simply, the experience of students of color in the West Hartford Public Schools is not equal to the experience of their white peers. We don't need to guess about whether or not this is true. We have the data that show disparities in academic achievement even prior to the COVID pandemic, which has exacerbated this issue. Troubling as well is the disparity in discipline by race. We have tried to have an impact on these measures by committing ourselves to best practices around curriculum, coaching of teachers, hiring a diverse staff, and more. And we've tried to improve those things less measurable, like peer-led segregation and avoidance. We have made efforts to create more welcoming school environments for people of color, for immigrants, and for families for whom English is not their first language. And we'll hear more tonight about some of our initiatives towards improving equity. I find hope in our caring community, our civic-minded students, and our talented, committed educators. I call on our West Hartford Public Schools community to work with us on these issues. We want to hear all voices. We want all people, particularly those who feel least empowered, to share their experiences and their ideas to help effect change that will dismantle these disparities. We recommit ourselves to being intentionally anti-racist, to actively working for a more equal school system and a more equal community. Thank you. Okay, we do have a revision to the agenda order this evening. We are going to start with new business item A, the nomination, appointment, and swearing in of our new board member. To be transparent, this has already happened in real life, and we're just going to do it again so that we can have it televised. The recommendation is that the Board of Education appoint Elizabeth Liz Wilcox as a member of the West Hartford Board of Education to fill the position vacated by Mr. Robert Levine for the period of June 2nd, 2020 through November 2nd, 2021, and that Ms. Essie Lebreau swear in Elizabeth Liz Wilcox as a new board member. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. And a second?
Second, Amanda Aronson.
Thank you, Amanda. I guess we vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and I'll turn it over to our town clerk, Essie Lebreau.
Thank you. Ms. Wilcox, will you please raise your right hand, and do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully perform, according to law, your duties as a member of the West Hartford Board of Education to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks. I'm honored to be working alongside all of you.
We do not have any student participation, so we're going to move to public communications. I believe we do have a few members of the public who wish to speak to the board this evening. So for each of you, I'll just say what I would tell everybody. There are comments that are for 3 minutes per individual, 21 minutes per subject matter maximum. When you begin your comments, please state your name and your address before you provide your comments. And if you're watching us online, you'll see Cammie, who is going to raise a yellow piece of paper when you have 1 minute left, and then a red piece of paper when you have no more time left. So I will open it up for public communications. And if you want to go first.
That some may be on the phone, and there might have to be a verbal announcement of time.
Right. So if you, if you'll just let me know when you start speaking, if you can or cannot see Cammie, then I will be the person to let you know about the timing. Thank you for that. All right. So does anyone want to go first?
Yes. This is Yuki Oida. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Yuki Oida, and I reside at 63 Highwood Road. First, I would like to thank the members of the Board of Ed, Superintendent Moore, administrators, and educators here, as we are all juggling the pressures of home and work, as well as all the raw emotions that we are experiencing with the systemic racism and violence that we are seeing play out across our communities, targeting our Black community members. It's an emotional time for many in our community, but, and I commend the district for seeing that, you know, that we need to move more to an anti-racist professional development, training, and, you know, looking at what we do through the practices and policies at the buildings, at the, you know, the Board of Ed, through the anti-racist lens. As a founding member of the Norfolk PTO Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, we as parents have been doing this work since 2017 at our local buildings, and, you know, everything from community building, making sure that we are centering the voices of our Black, Indigenous, you know, parents of color. We've been trying to create a space where it's safe, we are heard, and we can impact change. And at Norfolk, we have been able to, you know, advocate for diverse books in our classrooms, find funding for those things. Parents have been contributing, you know, blurbs for all the Heritage Month so that teachers can make announcements, and we've collected resources to go along with it. And even PTO events, we have been able to put an equity lens and make sure that everyone has access to our events. And some things like creating a sensory room where families and children can go and take a break and regroup from, you know, all the loud and exciting activity that's happening. So we have been doing a lot of anti-racist, you know, community building at our buildings. And we have also been started a collaboration with Rosina Haskins and the Equity Diversity Council this year in starting the Family School Partnership Series. We had a great kickoff event in January, and unfortunately, the second in the series had to be canceled because of COVID-19. But we have been getting great feedback about, you know, having this space where organic relationships between parents, educators, and community members to have a safe space to talk about these issues that are pressing for many in our community. And, you know, I am also a part of the Connecticut Family School Partnership Advisory Council, and Connecticut has a definition for what family engagement looks like, and it's full, equal, and equitable partnership. And I invite, you know, Board of Ed members, Superintendent Moore, to come to one of our meetings so that we can discuss, you know, actions further and get, you know, give you our input as to what we are seeing on the ground and how we can help each other support all of our students.
Try to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board this evening?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Nikia Alexander. I live at 2 Beacon Hill Drive. And I wanted to comment, just make a comment on the communication that we received yesterday from the superintendent. And while I appreciate the communication, obviously, from the superintendent, I do have to admit that I felt a little conflicted and a little disappointed about the notion that there was some level of satisfaction as it relates to our state as a district prior to the recent events. And although I'm sure there has been some progress, as Tom mentioned in his communication, myself and many other parents over the last couple years have felt compelled and obligated to develop EDI committees across the district because of the very fact that we are not satisfied. And especially as a parent of 2 Black boys, I am particularly dissatisfied at the fact that my kids still see no people of color in leadership roles at school, that they, for the most part, do not have enough books or literature accessible to them in the classroom that reflects who they are and what they look like, nor a curriculum that sufficiently depicts their history in a genuine, honest way. I am not satisfied that African American students across the district are consistently underperforming compared to their white counterparts, and sometimes by almost 20 points across literature, math, and science. Nor am I satisfied that the gifted program, at least on the elementary level, is disproportionately white and does not provide kids of color the same access to enrichment programs. So I'm not saying this, I'm not saying all this just to complain or call anyone out, but Tom mentioned in his communication that we can do better. And I agree that we can. But I also think that starts with an open line of communication and a two-way dialogue between parents and the district. So that said, as Yukio had mentioned previously, our EDI groups collectively would like to propose that we have a consistent standing meeting with the superintendent and potentially some Board of Ed members to discuss the issues that are critical to our community and moving this new anti-racist approach forward. So we hope that the group is open to this, and we look forward to a successful, effective relationship going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just state for the public to know, we do not respond to comments. So don't take the fact that we're not responding to mean anything other than that's just our board policy. Are there other members of the public who wish to communicate this evening?
Hi there. My name
Hi.
is Gigi Polun.
Go for it.
I live at 31 Grennan Road, and I am a parent of a middle schooler at Bristow and 3 Brayburn students. I am also part of the West Hartford Parent Community EDI, getting out what her name is, but I also co-founded the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee over at Brayburn a few years ago because I thought it was important to have difficult conversations around race and social justice, even at the elementary level. So what I was trying to do is to focus on making a change at a super hyper local level and try to get books that were more representative of our community and that showed diverse backgrounds and different perspectives. Within that group, we also brought in racial justice training for children and their parents, for 4th grade kids and their parents, and we're also working to bring True Colors to begin a community conversation around gender this year, but it was unfortunately canceled due to COVID-19. So I too want to commend the district for their support and also for what they've been doing in terms of like moving things forward, like making Rosina's position as Director of Diversity Advancement a full-time job. I've been honored and thrilled to work with her in many of our many of the things that we've been trying to do, such as the Family and School Partnership Series. And what I wanted to point out tonight is that in Tom Moore's email, he did refer to going beyond cultural competence to West Hartford becoming more actively anti-racist in thoughts, actions, and professional development. And I applaud that because I have wanted for our schools to go beyond cultural competence. And what I want to know is really how we will address that. And I know that you mentioned going forward that some plans will be put into place, but I want to urge to have a curriculum that is more representative and include all histories and all backgrounds, not just Black history. And I know there has been a state mandate to include Latino and Black history at the high school level. And I know there's at least one course at the high school level now for Black history, but it is so important for kids to learn about other histories as well, such as Asian American history and also Native American history. Just in the past few months, Asian Americans have been subjected to harassment and anti-racism, not only nationally, but also locally. So we need to understand that Asians also experience racism. And for many Asian kids, they don't believe that racism can happen to them. It's only something that happens to Black people. And for many African Americans, they don't believe that Asians experience any racism, so they don't have anything to worry about. It's really important for kids to learn about everyone's history as well, so that they can get a better understanding and a more nuanced understanding of like why things work and how our struggles are actually tied together. Because without an understanding of these histories, we can't really move forward. So in Tom Moore's email, he also mentioned that the time is now for us to commit to our children that we will do better. And I would like to see how the district is going to hold itself accountable and hopefully they will take into account parent voices and hopefully we'll have a way for us to also participate in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, this is Jason, and I'd like to speak.
Sure, go for it.
Hi, my name is Jason Chang. I live at 79 Ringgold Street. I have 3 children at Charter Oak Elementary, and I'm a professor at University of Connecticut in the history department, and I also direct the Asian and Asian American Studies Institute there. I just wanted to start off by saying I'm really proud to be in this district where where the board has, supported these statements, and also live in a community where other parents are engaged and supporting these efforts. I wanted to share that as a child, I didn't learn about anyone's history until and any people of color until high school, and I think that now that I'm a professor of history and I study race relations and teach about immigrant history at the university level, that it's taken me an additional 12 years of education to teach myself about that. And I encounter students educated in Connecticut who come to my classes at the university without having experienced, with having the same experience I had. And it shows me that what has happened, the advances that have been made, are not enough, and that was clear to me before this year, before the pandemic, before the most recent uprisings, and so I think what I would really encourage the board to think about is a really aggressive and open and engaged approach that we won't find an answer in the next year, but that this is an ongoing process, and that when we engage communities and families in the education process, it makes both stronger. The presence of ethnic studies curriculum for African American, Asian American, Latin American, and Native American people, what studies show is that students are more engaged, they perform better, and they succeed after school as well. And so this is, not just about a kind of evenness, but this is also about excellence and performance. Diverse classrooms are central to excellence, and the creativity and performance of diverse groups are always better than more homogeneous groups.
Wrap up, please.
Thank you. So just wanted to ask everyone to think of an ethics of care for our students, that to be honest and with them about the world they live in, and to engage in anti-racism as a long-term commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to speak? All right, we will move on to unfinished business. And item A is a motion to accept the revised Student-Athlete Handbook. The recommendation is that the Board of Education accept the revised Student-Athlete Handbook as presented by the administration and reviewed by the Board Policy Subcommittee. So I have a parliamentary question, which is, we already moved this last time and then tabled it. Do we need to remove the motion? Yes. Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved, Amanda Aronson.
Thank you, Amanda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. And discussion?
Well, maybe, Andy, for Liz's, unless she wants to abstain, maybe just give a brief overview of why we're doing this, just a Reader's Digest.
Okay, the Reader's Digest version is we last year, about a year ago, put together a group of parents, of coaches, of administrators, and took a hard look at the Student-Athlete Activities Handbook with the idea that we wanted to make sure that it was appropriately representing our goals, also appropriate in consequences, and was measured in the fact that we really hadn't looked at it for 10 years and wanted to make sure that it also reflected best practices with the CIAC and neighboring districts. So this group, in the process of meetings that this group had and this committee had, we also did outreach and involved PTOs at each of the schools. We involved the student athletes at each of the schools. We involved the principal advisories at each of the high schools, as well as faculty and coaches, collected that feedback and presented the changes at the last meeting. Your motion tonight is to accept the handbook as revised.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on this?
So what I would like to oops, I'm sorry, do the question mark.
Lorna, go ahead.
Pardon. What I would like to bring forth, I believe that I know there was discussion from the last meeting that we had, and there seemed to be some continued thoughts in terms of semantics and wording within the handbook. Wonderful job overall with the committee. I very much appreciate the time and consideration in putting those pieces forward. As it relates to specifying which items are prohibited in terms of alcohol and drugs, thought or the request is to also specify nicotine and vaping products as well. As has been explained, we do know that it is explained in the policy how that is a violation, but just to have continuity of the language and to minimize ambiguity in terms of whatever the case may be, is that something we would request for that please to be added?
That's fine, Lorna, and I'll go ahead and again, that's just that's simply going ahead. When we talk about violation of drug and alcohol, we'll put in nicotine and tobacco and nicotine products. So that's fine.
Wonderful, thank you.
And just for clarity, and vaping, right?
Yes, well, you have to understand, if you remember back when we redid the policy 2 years ago, tobacco and delivery systems were all covered under that, and vaping and snuff, everything is covered under that. So yes, but we'll broaden the definitions.
Great, thank you. Are there other members who wish to ask questions or discuss this item? All right, with that change then, I will try your minds. All those in favor of accepting the revised Student-Athlete Handbook with the revision to include tobacco and vaping products, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and thanks for all your hard work on that. Everybody who played a role. Moving on to new business, we already did item A. We'll move to item B, which is a motion by Amanda Aronson, Lorna Thomas Farquharson, and Mark Zdanowitz for approval of model policies. The recommendation is that the West Hartford Board of Education approve all model policies drafted by our legal counsel, Shipman and Goodwin, that are legally required or otherwise essential to the proper and effective operation of the West Hartford Public Schools. Is there a motion? Or I guess that is the motion, but can we just have somebody make the motion?
So moved.
I got Mark and a second.
Second.
I got Lorna. All right. Discussion.
Okay, Deb, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, this is Amanda Aronson. We just wanted to give the community an overview of what this means in plain language. The West Hartford Public Schools utilizes a model policy service by Shipman and Goodwin. And so the Board of Education has a subcommittee that reviews policy. So Dr. Lorna Thomas Farquharson and Mr. Mark Zdanowitz and I are the board members who sit on that policy committee. And one of our jobs this year was to look through this binder. This is our model policy binder from Shipman and Goodwin. We went through and read every single word of it. And what this tells us is all of the policies that are legally mandated. So most of the things in here are things that make sure that we are complying with the law. And there are also policies that affect all of the core areas that ensure that the schools are being run effectively and safely. So this motion is to accept the model policies that they've analyzed and that we have reviewed so that we can go into the 2020-2021 school year ensuring that all of our policies are complying with the necessary areas. So essentially this is our baseline. And from there, anything that gets updated or added, they will review, we will review, and then we can certainly take a look at anything that is West Hartford specific as we normally would. So this is, it's been a very reassuring process, and we thank Jessica Ritter and Andy Morrow and everyone for helping as we did that review. And I know that Andy and Jessica are also available for any questions that are needed in more detail.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, wow, that was easy. If not, then I'll try your minds on this motion. All those in favor of accepting the model policies, please signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? And the ayes have it. Thank you. And will we be receiving copies of these now that they've been approved by the board?
Yeah, everyone will start the new year fresh with the book.
I'm looking forward to it.
So am I.
All right. Moving right along to staff communications and reports and to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thanks. Tonight, we have some, everything has been a maelstrom of events, emotions, and obviously I sent a letter to the community reflecting the feelings of the district, the feelings of myself, and our commitment to what we are going to do to be better. And it's one of those difficult, I'll be honest, anytime you send something like that, you make yourself vulnerable. I don't want anyone to misinterpret. I think a hallmark from the time I took over as superintendent, one of the things that everybody that's presented at every board meeting knows when we present results or anything else, I always make it a point to present the negative, not just put a shine on everything that we do. That can be difficult. There are people that feel like it's too negative. And, we've had some successes in doing some things, but that sounds defensive, frankly. And now is not the time for defensiveness. Now is the time to move forward, to get better, and to do well. So we're committed to that over the next, over the rest of our West Hartford Public Schools existence, that we can be a part of society that works to continue to improve and maybe has a little less patience is my goal. One of the things I'm very proud to report tonight is that we have a very good announcement, or I have a very good announcement to make. The Connecticut Association of Schools just sent me a letter this weekend announcing that Joy Wright, principal of King Philip Middle School, has been named the 2020 Connecticut Association of Schools Middle School Principal of the Year. She was chosen for this amongst the entirety of the state of Connecticut of all middle school principals. She had a remote site visit, which was difficult, obviously, and went through everything, and they noted what a change agent in her school and in our community Joy has been. And for those of us that have known Joy over the years, we can't say anything other than how proud we are to have her as leader in the district. I am so thrilled to have her leading the changes that we need, and I want to offer my most heartfelt congratulations to Joy, and really to the King Philip community overall. So this is quite a feather in our cap, and we are thrilled for Joy. Now, the school's reopening, as we talked about last time. I've gotten some communications, and people sometimes feel frustration, and I share that frustration of, I wish I could just tell everyone right now, this is what we're doing in August at the start of school. But there are CDC guidelines, and there's going to be state guidelines, and there's going to be state recommendations. And that's something that a lot of us have said. We think it's very important that there's at least some models, at least by region and areas that are similar, so that we're working towards, we're working together to make sure we're all doing what's best for our kids, and a little bit less of haves and have-nots and differences in communities in the state. So we talked a lot about what will it look like. And I've said before, we're preparing literally for everything. We meet as an executive team every morning, and the topic for that conversation every day is, okay, what's next? What's going on? Paul has looked at basically every schedule under the sun. Rosina is talking about every type of community need that we have. Andy's meeting with procurement, you know, I mean, we're talking about how many thousands of masks do we need to order? What type of cleaning supplies do we need to order? How do we shift our custodial staff? I mean, you know, to kind of put in perspective, in the midst of everything else today, Andy and I had a meeting with Bob Palmer in the middle of the day to talk about what does a schedule look like for cleaning during the day if students are in the day, and how many part-time custodians will we need to add to make sure that we can clean to the standards that are necessary. And there's a lot of different proposals that are out there as to what the school year will look like. Depending on what the pandemic does, whether the same holds true for the fall and the spring is a big question. Depending on what guidelines around social distancing and mask wearing exist, I think we can say right now, one thing that we're going to be adjusting is class sizes and how does that work? Days of the week could be affected. Elementary school versus secondary schools and how we shift there. But one of the things that means is we don't have, if we had to shift spaces dramatically, we don't have enough space for all of our kids to be in. So there's a lot of things that we're going to have to think about. And frankly, I can promise one thing. Whatever the solution is, it will not be met with open arms by everybody. We're just kind of come to accept that. 100% approval ratings do not exist during pandemic times, I have found. So, but what I want to do for the remainder of my superintendent's update is we've put together community committees under kind of, one of the things I learned as we went into this that we've talked about is the clear delineation of duties and who's doing what is really important. And there's a lot of times where people want me at different things. And what I try to express to them is I go to a whole lot of things. But if I have somebody in charge of something, I need to make sure that person has my trust and my faith. And people need to understand when they're talking to that person, they're talking to me too. And so these committees will be chaired by members of my executive team. And I'm going to ask each one to talk a little bit about their team. So, and their committee and how this is going to look going forward. And so I think we spoke this morning. I think we'll start with Paul.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for the opportunity to present, and a welcome to Liz. My committee obviously relates to curriculum instruction and assessment, and the real charge for my committee is to determine the programmatic delivery and the impact on scheduling, and much of that will be defined as we get a little bit further into June and July and the state continues to provide us with some guidance. We have several models that we've looked at thus far. I want to assure you that When we know something definitive, we will be getting all stakeholder feedback, specifically parental feedback. But right now it's too early for us in terms of what the state guidance is to be able to assess that. I would like to take an opportunity to just kind of talk about where things are in the school briefly and where they're going in the summer. We are obviously winding down. We're into June. The seniors' last day is next Friday, June the 12th, and then the remainder of students have their last day on June 18th. We are maintaining our focus on academics. However, as we move into the last weeks, the elementary plan specifically will start to focus a little bit more on some social emotional aspects, some reflection. And I think, recent events have given us the unfortunate impetus and catalyst to redouble our efforts in terms of making sure that everyone has an understanding of identity, fair treatment, their role in terms of race and racism and how to react to that. And I could share some of the things. I don't want to step on Rosina's toes if she was planning to share any of it, but I do just want to acknowledge her work. Given, the understandable high emotions that are out there in our community regarding recent events, I just want to publicly acknowledge Rosina for her tireless work in this effort, and I'm proud to work alongside her, and it's pushed me in terms of where we are in a curricular lens on this. As we look ahead to the summer, I would simply say, we're planning our summer reading lists. We are at the elementary level, we're looking across those weekly plans that have been posted, and there are elements to those plans, specifically in science, in the arts, and in world language, that we recognize not all families were able to engage with. So we're sort of repackaging all of that from the weekly plans into some summer activities and extensions that folks might be able to like to engage in. We're also keeping our weekly plans posted throughout the summer, and we've extended access to some of the online programs, Math Dreambox, Lexia for literacy, that students will be able to access. With that, we'll be using some of those programs with our summer ESOL, summer prep program, the Charter Oak and Smith Summer Connections, and the Hannock summer programs. Those will be 4-week online programs that will begin in late June. We are conducting, Ann, Carrie, and myself have been sitting in on faculty meetings across all the different levels, getting both staff and families feedback in terms of what went well, what could be improved, should we have online components for our learning next year. We are in the midst, we just finished our 6th school conducting after action review, collecting those lessons learned with teachers, and looking at how that will inform our planning moving forward. And the committee itself is getting ready to publish a survey for students at the secondary level to collect their insights. In addition, we're looking at procurement of an online resource for the secondary level, should we be continuing to engage in that venue, and just really kind of pushes us something that we've seen that's worked very well as a presentation tool that will inform instruction whether we're online or in class. We're also looking at best practices. A lot of the initial feedback that we've gotten from students is, boy, if we could streamline and make the Google Classroom have some common expectations, so that especially when I'm a middle schooler or a high schooler and I have 5-6 different teachers and I'm seeing things 5-6 different ways, can I get everyone on the same page with how the material is presented in that platform? So, simple things like that. We're working on to identify what those best practices are, and that will be part of our professional learning as we prepare for next year, setting that expectation so that things are a little bit more streamlined and improved. So that's a kind of a hodgepodge of different ideas. Happy to take any questions either now or whenever the opportunity arises in this discussion.
Thanks, Paul. All right, I'd go to Rosina now, and Rosina, some of the topics that are in your presentation tonight naturally focus on both, but Rosina is going to be leading a committee focused on community outreach with stakeholders throughout the community. You could talk a little bit about that, Rosina. And again, I'd also say there are some things in this district I'm exceptionally proud of, nothing more than my partnership with Rosina Haskins and the fact that West Hartford has a director of diversity advancement, which district after district tries to add, and their boards of ed do not support it typically. So this goes to thank the board for their support, but more thanks, Rosina, for your expertise and the way you lead this district from the heart. So, Dr. Haskins.
Thanks, Tom and Paul. Good segue, Paul, into the community outreach advisory that I will be leading. That advisory will bring together community shoulder partners, as I like to call them, who will serve our students. They have served our students and families, and even before the COVID school closure, and will continue to do so. The committee will bring together diverse perspectives of people from across the district, and we will apply an equity lens to raise some really tough questions as we think about reopening schools and serving all students, and I'm including, you know, those that have been traditionally underserved and underrepresented. I'll highlight some of what we have learned that will help to inform our thinking and planning for reopening schools so that we leave no stones unturned.
All right. Thanks, Rosina. Gretchen, you want to talk about Gretchen, obviously, has been working on the extended school year and looking at the summer as we plan for next year and what things we can do there. In addition, both online and as we get ready for the school year, what it means. And as you know, we've met with SEPTO and had a productive meeting. Dr. Nelson.
All right. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So I'm going to start with talking about the committee that Tom has asked me to move forward with, which I'm very excited about. And this is to pull together a group of stakeholders to talk about the social and emotional impact of returning to school. And we know that all students are going to be affected on some level with how they're returning to school, what they think about how the last few months have been, and as they move forward. And so in order to do that, I have asked a group of teachers, students, parents, Board of Ed members, administrators, and community members to meet with me to talk about what are the things that we need to really do to support students as they re-enter. And so some of the topics that we'll be talking about are social and emotional learning across all students in all levels, about classroom management and what that's going to look like as we come back to school, about re-engaging in relationships with student to student as well as student to staff. Also talking about student discipline and how that might look differently as we re-enter in the school year. And then more significantly, behavioral and mental health support as we help students reintegrate into an in-person or a hybrid, we don't know, situation in the fall. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on within that committee. And then I also did want to talk about what we have been doing over the last few months in working in pupil services in terms of supporting students with disabilities, both with IEPs and 504s. And we have encountered some challenges because our students require additional support and some unique, very individualized support needs. And so, Rosina will touch on some of the challenges that we have encountered as we've worked to meet the needs of families and students with disabilities. We've also had some successes that I think is important to highlight, and some of our students have thrived under this situation. They've really done really well with this format. And then we have students that have really struggled with this format. And so we work daily with our department supervisors and our teachers to assess and to readjust and to meet the students where they are and meet the families where they are, to move them forward and to continue learning. We are in the process right now of working on ESY. So ESY is a summer school program for students who are found eligible under IDEA for additional programming throughout the year, primarily to help students with significant regression issues and recoupment issues. And so we have been looking at the state guidance, and at this point, we are planning on a virtual ESY program while I'm working with Andy and everyone else in the district in order to determine whether or not we can meet all of the safety issues and the requirements for bringing staff and students back to an in-person program in July. And so once we determine if we can meet those needs, then we will be looking at some type of an in-person programming, as the state has provided us with some guidelines around that. And so in order to meet those students' needs, it's going to be very important that we continue to have conversations with parents and teachers and stakeholders. And Tom and I were able to meet with the SEPTO group and get some of their concerns out on the table and address those. As we move forward into the new year, we're talking about how we can support students' needs as they reintegrate into the school year, but also learning from what we have experienced over the last few months in terms of meeting students where they are, using the different types of technology that we have been able to use, and capitalizing on some of the gains that we've made during this time. So that's really where we're working in pupil services.
Thanks, Gretchen. I can say with confidence there's not a person besides perhaps me that wants to be in school more than Gretchen, and knows the needs that we're having difficulty meeting. One of the things that people also need to understand is I can't order people to work during the summer. During the school year, it's a little bit different, but working during the summer is a voluntary position to come in and work with people either one-on-one or one-on-3 or one-on-5, one-on-7. So these are all issues. So it's not just that we have one thing we can decide to do. Everything has layers, and Rick will talk about that as we talk about when we come back in the fall in his committee. But Gretchen mentioned a few things, even busing at summer school. And Andy, by now, we usually have our bus routes done for the fall. We mail them in August, but we do practice runs, and there's a program, we do them all. Right now, the guidance for buses would have us with 12 or 13 kids on a bus when we normally have 52. You know that our transportation currently costs about $7 million, so we do 5 times as many buses if we just tried to do the same thing, which clearly isn't going to work. So that's something else we'll be talking to families about. That's something Andy's working hard about. I didn't want to so Andy's talking about procurement, he's talking about cleaning, he's talking about facilities, he's talking about buses, but Andy's also going to be overseeing our committee that looks at the medical requirements as we move back. So Andy, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. So yeah, one of the, as Tom mentioned, not the most exciting stuff that we're working on my side, but certainly I think it's important that we do it well. What we're really working on is closing out this year as we're winding down, as we're clearing buildings, as we're packing up classrooms, clearing out lockers safely, making sure that that's being taken care of at the building level. We're also looking at a committee to review the health and safety advisors that we're going to have going forward. And this is the committee that I put together that is made up of really more of emergency management types. We're working very closely with Bob McHugh, who's directing emergency management for the town. Eric, as you know, Bob Palmer and I working closely with Amy Krause, who's the director of the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District, some of her people who are public health emergency responses. We also have 4 physicians on this committee and other health advisors to really, as we develop different scenarios, to be able to tell us that, yes, this is a best practice, yes, this is something that would work, or we need to consider these other aspects. Because again, what we're going to do in the fall, regardless of what it looks like, is we're going to do it well and we're going to do it safely. And that's our commitment since day one on this. And so these are the people who are going to give us that feedback and that expertise.
Thanks, Andy. And I think that this is, a little example I'll use that I discussed with the principals today to kind of say, we're going to have to roll this out with our teachers slowly and with our families so that we understand one thing. Think of what a classroom looks like. Think of how over the past few years we've taken classrooms and tried to deinstitutionalize them. I never had my classroom in rows. There was always a circle or a semicircle for discussion. Think of the homey kind of touches, or as a comfortable reading chair, or some people with little mini couches, or the carpet that people come together on the carpet. That's all gone. I mean, we have to reinstitutionalize our classrooms because everything has to be wiped down constantly. That's one of the things that's going to be a reality as we move forward. So the idea of like Cotton's existence in our classroom, Cotton ain't going to be king anymore this year. This is just the kind of thing that we have to look at. It's a massive challenge as we look at how we're going to redesign all of our classrooms also. And we need experts, not just in health, but also Bob Palmer obviously will be on that group also as we look at our facility. And last but not least, Rick Ledwith, in a committee that doesn't have as much community involvement, but is really focused on our employees. If you want to talk about that a little bit, Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So the name of my committee will be the Employee Workplace Safety Committee. And this committee will be comprised of employees across all of our categories of employees. So that includes teachers, administrators, secretaries, paraprofessionals, custodians, maintenance workers, nutrition service workers, security, nurses, you name it, everyone will be represented in our committee. In addition, our board chair will serve on this committee, so thanks, Deb. And the mission of this committee will be to work together to provide the safest environment possible for our employees to work in. And this will include ensuring our facilities are fully clean and equipped with a blueprint for maintaining safe conditions every day, setting up a support system for employees as they return to our buildings and adjust to new realities and emotional challenges that could be presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then creating a plan for a safe and work environment that protects our employees from risks connected to COVID-19, including exposure and transmission. This committee will help us to develop safe workplace policies, PPE policies, emergency leave policies, which will include the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act and the emergency FMLA laws presently in place, and will help us address things like employees with underlying health risks and what that means coming back to work. We as a committee are really going to want to think about every possible employee-related scenario that we can think of and really have a plan in place to address it, which is really no small task. We sent out an invitation today to the committee members, and we'll look to start our meeting schedule shortly. We're hoping to have some guidance from the governor soon, as this will help drive the work that we will do collectively together. So that summarizes this committee. Be happy to answer any questions that you guys had.
Thanks, Rick. And I think it's important to note that families have trepidation for their children. We have staff also that are nervous about what they're going back to. And there's things that, people read one thing, and that's the importance of Andy's health committee. People read something and believe something. I've had, we have the UV cabinets for all the glasses and goggles for our science classes. That's where they go. And so once this all started and we found out we were going to have to reuse the masks and everything, we went through this process. And again, it was a chase I put Andy on, where we're taking all of those down, relocating them so the police could use it, and then the CDC issued guidance that said, nope, they don't work on masks. After like a week and a half of reorganizing, relocating, that's the kind of thing. And sometimes people are operating on things from a month ago or 2 months ago, and things change rapidly as to what we know is safe and what we can try to do. So with that, open to questions for me or any of my team about their committees, and I thank them for their diligence. I should add, I will be meeting with the PTC and reporting out from all of those committees as they report back to me. And the PTC, I've talked to Steve Dean, who's run the PTC, and he's going to be sending out a communication this week. And we'll meet throughout the summer so that is a conduit. That's how we'll communicate and make sure each PTO has information from all of the committees that we can report back to their home schools and be able to answer questions. So. And Liz, I apologize for all the acronyms. When we have hard paper booklets, they all come through. The PTC is the Parent Teacher Council, so it's representatives from every PTO. And I always have to work on that. It's not you, it's us.
It's okay. Actually, so I knew what it was.
Oh,
so.
Perfect. That's right.
Excellent. Any questions for Tom or anybody on the team? Sean.
Thank you for the description of all the committees. Very helpful. I was just wondering, mostly for the public's interest, of what source of guidance are you most eager for? Because we get a lot of recommendations to us. We get a lot of suggestions on what to do from experts in the community. And are you, for example, CDC, the governor's office, the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District? Maybe you can just kind of say what you're waiting for guidance from.
Sure. The answer is yes. I speak to the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District 4 times a week. We have standard calls, and the days that I don't, sometimes there's a double up with Andy in the morning, as we're on 2 separate townwide committees. The CDC sends out guidelines, and if I'm being honest, they're not as prescriptive probably as the states are currently for summer school. And the fact is, I am very confident that on the governor's desk is a plan that's come from the State Department of Education that he will be releasing within the next X number of time. Just as there is for UConn, I think there is for the schools of Connecticut. I don't know how prescriptive it will be. I don't know how definitive it will be. But I know that CAPS has had representatives that have worked on it. I know that the CEA and AFT have had representatives that have worked on it. I know CABE has had representatives that have worked on it. I've heard a lot of different rumors about it, but until I see it, I can't make a promise as to what it says. But realistically, that's what's going to drive. I think, our plan and every district's plan going forward after that, is because the fact is we can't have 169 different plans for education in the state. And there'll probably be a couple districts that will try to do things differently. There are districts trying to do things differently now. But, only 1/3 of our teachers live in West Hartford. And anybody that's taught knows going to another place and childcare issues and just the continuity of instruction that we need from our employee staff of 900 plus teachers is going to be a major challenge if people are all doing different things. So more to come once we get it. And I would expect that document is, but I'm hoping it's not just because I hope so much. I would hope and expect that it's not too far off from getting that guidance.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we all have a lot of questions, but we don't have a lot. We know that you don't have the answers at this point. So you're going to get a pass, I think, on this one for now. All right, moving on to staff reports and board discussions. And first off is the personnel report. And Rick Ledwith, you're up.
Good evening, everyone, again. And the personnel report can be found on pages 3 and 4 of your board packet, which was emailed out to you. So I know you hopefully had a chance to glance through it anyways. As of this evening, we have 14 retirements and 5 resignations. That's end of the year retirement. So for comparative purposes, we had 27 retirements last year and 25 the year before that. So going into this year, we had budgeted 25 retirements. So we are surprised at the low number for this school year. And as of now, we're uncertain as to how this number may or may not change due to the pandemic. We had thought, and we talk about this almost every day as the executive team, as we're moving through the pandemic response, that we may receive more retirements from folks who may not want to come back in the fall due to the uncertainty. But since the outbreak of the pandemic in March, we've only received 1 additional retirement. So that may be where we stand as we head into the summer. So with this, these retirement and resignation numbers, our leaders are in interviewing and hiring mode, though at a much reduced rate than in previous years. And unfortunately, we are hiring without the use of our 3 signature recruiting events: the CREC Minority Teacher Career Fair, the NEAG School of Education Career Fair, and of course, the West Hartford Public Schools Teacher Career Fair. Were all canceled due to the pandemic. We had also signed up for the Howard University Teacher Career Fair down in Washington, D.C., which would have been our first time attending a historically Black college and university career fair. That as well was canceled too. So that we will make sure we get there next year. And of course, we have started our hiring, and we are doing it completely virtually for the first time ever. And early in the pandemic, we realized we would not be back in our buildings. So we worked with our leadership team to develop guidance for conducting remote interviews. This guidance addresses some of the things we have experienced, even in these types of meetings that we're in tonight. Early on when we had these first virtual type of meetings, you always want to make sure your technology is working correctly, cameras, microphones, checking your lighting, backgrounds, etc. Muting your devices when we aren't talking, relying on nonverbal cues as we chair the interview committees, and looking for nods and shaking of the heads so that everyone isn't speaking into their devices at once. And really these little things, I think, make a difference in providing the best possible experience for our committees and for the candidates coming through the door. And we've done a few new hires over the last few weeks, and the feedback from those candidates has been positive on this experience. So we're happy about that. And that summarizes our last personnel report of the year. When we do receive guidance from the governor, we know things are likely to look different for next year, and what impact that may have on staffing as we move through the summer. We will learn, and we will certainly keep the board up to date as we learn those things over the next few weeks. That's it for me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board had.
Thank you. Amanda, and then Sean.
Thank you, Amanda Aronson. I do have a question for you, Rick. I didn't mention it to you ahead of time, so if you don't know it off the top of your head, perhaps we can connect later. But if you do know, have there been any changes to when you're thinking about hiring as far as reciprocity and licensure? I know particularly with the hiring of minority teachers, when we're thinking about the reciprocity from states, or if you're trying to recruit from HBCU graduates, the praxis exams and some of the hurdles that we've faced and most districts face, what's the status of that as far as hiring someone out of state?
It's a great question, and hiring from state to state, and every state actually handles it almost the same way that Connecticut does, and we do make it difficult for folks that are moving from out of state or teaching in an out of state district and then trying to come through Connecticut. But we're committed to working with any candidate and helping them through that process and working directly with the state. With our staff right here in HR, we do it every year, and certainly working with minority candidates. If we're able to recruit folks from the HBCUs, we would do that as well. I know the state's working specifically on that question. I can get you some more specific answers to that question, Amanda. It's a good question.
Okay, thank you. Because it is actually a question more about if there's any change on the state level.
Yeah.
And if they've relaxed any of those things in light of some of the hurdles and timelines for things.
Yeah.
There were a couple bills with the legislature this year, but obviously with the legislature, postponed, some of those didn't come to fruition. So, I think it's right now, there hasn't been a lot of movement in that area as an accommodation for this, but we'll see. Maybe over the summer we'll get some more guidance.
Okay, thank you.
Sean?
Having moved cross country twice, I appreciate your question, Amanda. And reciprocity is definitely something to consider when attracting the best teachers for our students. Connecticut does set a high bar, but in my experience, I don't know if this is possible, Rick, but I believe we do have the 1-year emergency waiver option. I don't know if that's still an option for areas of need, especially, but it's definitely something that we as maybe Democrats and Republicans can reach out to our counterparts for. My question was more so for the retirement side of it. West Hartford does this amazing thing where they have this grand, retirement dinner or celebration where I think, our superintendent would come and say some nice things about all the retirees, and there's a few on that list that I definitely have looked up to over the years. So I was just wondering, is there any way that those people are going to be thanked and honored for their service to the district?
Yep, that's another good question, Sean. And actually, as I think it would be last Thursday, we would have had our big retirement dinner over at the Farmington Club. So unfortunately, with everything that's happened, that's been canceled. I know there's a lot of different retirements that are happening within each school. I don't think there's anything happening from a district-wide standpoint, but we will be attending a couple of virtual retirements at individual schools. So they'll be run by the principals themselves. If you want to reach out to me on the side, I can let you know when those are.
That's great. I just wanted to make sure that they realize that we still support them, and it's got to be tough for them going out. I'm not sure, they would have planned for this as well, and many people look forward to that event.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 2, Equity and Diversity Council report, COVID-19 response. Dr. Haskins.
Again, good evening, everyone. And
good evening.
Thank you, Deb, for your opening statement of acknowledgement and support for racial and social justice. And I know that the board can't respond to public comments, but these are voices that I know very well that they've supported our work. And, I want to say to them, if they're still listening, I hear you. I truly hear you. And I think that's important. I value your partnership. And I'm eager to continue to work with all parents as we lean in and dig deeper, as we apply this anti-racism model as an overlay to our cultural competence framework. To the board, thank you for this opportunity to report to you and the viewing public some of the reflections and findings of the Equity and Diversity Council during the COVID-19 school closing. Tonight, I'll highlight a few key findings and actions, but a full board report was made available online. And just before I go to screen share, I'll just say, full confession, my heart is very heavy. And so I apologize that I don't have a song in my voice tonight, but I have hope in my heart because incidentally, I've got Kenya and Isabella side by side in my screen view this evening. And I'd be remiss or negligent and maybe even tone deaf if I didn't acknowledge this as a very trying time and to apologize to you and your peers and your siblings for what you've had to experience and what you've had to endure during what should be such a joyous time in your lives, in your young lives. And I know that you deserve better. And you deserve better than even my leadership has given you. And that won't be the legacy. I am sorry for the chaos and unrest that you find yourself centered in, and I'm looking right at you. And so today, today I had the privilege at Connor to sit in on a student discussion. And I have to say, I have hope because I was so proud of their resilience and the way that they've come together to reflect and dialogue about the pain and the change and healing that we need. And so tonight, as I highlight, the ways that we've coped with COVID-19 during the closure, I just want to make it clear, because this was a recurring theme today, that I recognize that we are in a pandemic of racial injustice, and the crisis of COVID-19 has really magnified racial inequity. And so I think it's important that our students are heard, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but listening to them today, it reemphasized that for me, and it made me think of Dr. King quote, "A riot is the language of the unheard." And so, Kenya and Isabella, thank you for your voices, for not being silent, and for being an inspiration for me. So allow me to screen share my presentation. All right, give a holler if you cannot see. I'll make an adjustment. All right. So what I'd like to highlight are 3 key areas where we've seen significant challenge. We've seen opportunities for growth and connections, and we've identified a lot of ongoing needs. And so Superintendent Moore has encouraged me to be as candid and honest about where we've probably have fallen short. And we'll use our findings and this information to inform our advisory committees, and in particular our community advisory. But those 3 key buckets I want to focus on are the grab-and-go operations, technology and internet access, and family engagement in the context of at-home learning. And as I always do in every presentation, I try to ground us in the work the framework that guides and drives our work. And it's this cultural competence continuum, and it's with an equity lens. And essentially, equity is just not one size fits all. Equity is giving everyone the footwear that they need to run their best race. And we still subscribe to our framework for cultural competence. And essentially, it means checking your biases at the door so that we can be our best selves for our students and families and for each other. And over time, growing in our cultural humility. But we recognize that's not enough. We overlay that with an anti-racism lens and model. And this was something that we had already started working on prior to school closing. We have a high school group that's mobilized and ready to implement a model on anti-racism, anti-racist training. And it really essentially focuses on breaking the influence and disrupting this legacy of racism by empowering our teachers, and in particular, our white teachers. So our first bucket I want to focus on is grab and go, our grab and go operations, as I call it, because on March 16th, the first day of school closure, the Department of Nutrition Services, they set up in 7 locations a grab and go meal distribution operation. And we were planning to distribute food, meal package bags of meals for students with need, just to minimize the threat of food insecurity. And as it turned out, our grab and go sites have been way more than just meal distributors. We have, to date, we've served over 60,000 bagged meals. They're code, there are, kind of supper time kind of meals too. We're open 3 days a week for an hour and a half, and meals are packaged so that there are 2 days worth of servings for breakfast and for lunch on Mondays and Wednesdays, and 3 days for the weekend on Fridays. And we've found that we've been able to engage families by at our grab and go sites. We've been kind of a welcome center and an information kiosk, if you will. But it has not been without challenges. We expected transportation barriers, even though we were initially set up at 7 sites. We had families that could not access the grab and go sites, and for a host of reasons, not just because of maybe not having access to a vehicle, but the challenge of rounding up 3 kids in the morning, midday, and they're in the middle of their instruction to travel over to their local grab and go site to bring meals back home and then reestablish that structure that they had in the morning. And so we recognize that as a barrier. Our hours of operation, again, hour and a half in the middle of the day. That's kind of a one size fits all at all of our locations. That really hasn't been as effective as we'd like. And then dietary restrictions. Generally during the regular school day program, that's something that we can do pretty seamlessly. And we've done a really good job, but it's been challenging because we just don't have the systems and structures in this very unusual setting to collect information about dietary needs and restrictions and talking to each other across the different sites. And so we have relied heavily on the relationships that we've developed with our families. And then we still have families that report making their meals stretch through the evening, and even 3 meals, 3 days of servings of breakfast and lunch on the weekend, making those stretch because money needs to go to other competing priorities and bills and keeping a roof over their heads. Now, we have been responsive every time some of those challenges present itself. When we started Grab and Go the first day, we knew immediately we had 3 families that were requesting delivery, door-to-door delivery. And that number is up to 40 plus families. And, I think my board report probably says under 40 because that number changes every week. And that's due to various circumstances. But we've been fortunate to partner with local food programs like Food Share, the Food Pantry. We stay connected to our Hartford Grab and Go food sites because of our Hartford residents who attend West Hartford Public Schools through the Open Choice School Integration Program. And we have been so fortunate to have the food backpack programs, the Fern Street Food Ministry. They pack. It's a 2-person operation, a mother and daughter, and they pack fresh bags of groceries and they deliver them to every family that they serve. And they serve probably over 100 children and adults, and serving 60 plus families, as well as Gifts of Love is another program. And they bring the food bags to our grab and go sites, and we deliver them to the homes of families who cannot pick them up. I will say that we've also been very fortunate to have parent supporters, lots of community volunteers. We've had donations of money and gift cards that have served well over 100 families. And, we've been able to answer the call for help with those donations and in very equitable ways, I will say. If a parent needs fuel in their car to get to a grab and go site or to get to work, there's a gas gift card for that. So we are very judicious, equitable. We log all donations, we acknowledge them, and we make sure that we target them to a specific need. And we call our grab and go distribution operations multi-purpose because it's just a great information site for disseminating important information and things that are happening in the community or things and resources that families may need. But it's also an opportunity for us to connect with families and then make referrals to different agencies that might support their ongoing needs. For some families, COVID-19 just completely pulled the rug out from under them, and they've never had to access any kind of relief or aid from any agencies before. And so what's special about our grab and go sites is that, we had, because of the executive orders, they were becoming more strict. We had to replace 200 of our community volunteers with our school nurses, our food nutrition services staff, our school security team, and West Hartford Police Department. And they have served as a wonderful conduit to our leadership team, just letting us know what our families really need and giving us feedback from our families. And it really has been two-way communication. And so, like I said, it's more than just distributing meals. I want to reiterate that the teams don't only look forward to handing out, bagged meals and putting food on the table. They work really, really hard to put smiles on children's faces, and even those smiles that you can't see behind masks. We recognize that through our grab and go distribution and feedback from parents and caregivers, that there's still a lot of needs. Everyone wants to know about summer grab and go, summer meals, and because a lot of programs take a break during the summer, unfortunately, community needs don't take a break. And so we won't take a break with our grab and go locations. We'll just have to modify, our locations, maybe look at accessibility a little deeper and clearer in terms of needs. The information that I'm sharing and what I outlined in my report, it's more so qualitative than it is quantitative and empirical. So when I say many, I really mean a lot. And we've seen a lot of need and growing need. But we've been fortunate to be kind of a welcoming face of the West Hartford Public Schools for families who have been displaced, and now they're here living in West Hartford, and they're not sure where to go, what to do, or even knowing to register children. So, we recognize we have needs, and that'll help us to inform some of our advisory committees. Technology is the other bucket I wanted to talk about, and this slide just really lays out how we're situated with our technology and our devices. As you can see, we have almost a 1.5 device per student ratio, and that's based on our February 2020 enrollment. Again, no surprise that there were challenges there. For some families that have devices in the home, they're outdated, or systems are incompatible, or there are no devices, or the cell phone is the only device, and the sharing between siblings and parents who are now working remotely was just really challenging, we found. And then the printer. In the beginning, we were handing out hard copies of the educational packets, the learning packets. And, some families knew that they can access them online, and it was just too costly for them to print, even if they had a printer. And internet access, once we got lots of devices into the hands and homes of our families, we found that a lot of them just didn't have internet or Wi-Fi access, or if they did, the bandwidth was low or slow. And I was embarrassed because we really carefully looked and combed through all of the resources that are out there for low cost or free internet service, and all those providers. I mean, we picked up the phone and called them just to make sure that, they were answering, it was the right number, that we had the correct information posted on our websites. We really vetted them carefully, but I was embarrassed to find that a lot of families just could not access the low cost or free internet services. And in the beginning, for some, it was because they had overdue balances, because now they've had to budget in different ways. And so we were pleased to go back to those families and talk to them about the amnesty agreement that all of the providers confirmed and attested to. And so for families, there were still families that their needs could not be met. And having to be in the corner by a window trying to get a Wi-Fi signal just was heartbreaking. Some of the ways that we have been responsive, we have distributed almost 2,000 Chromebooks and iPads, and we continue to receive them for swapping out and fixing and making adjustments, and even distributing more if something goes wrong or there's another need. We have distributed 200 webcams for our teachers, because if students can't see their teachers, they can't connect. And for those families who were still without internet access, we were able to procure 10 mobile hotspots. I think that number is up now. They're mobile MiFis, in which we assume the cost of the service during this time that they are out. And part of the funds that we were able to apply to that came from the West Hartford Foundation. So helped us support. All of those things are in place for families. Call, put in a help desk ticket, and then we've made sure that we've had subscriptions and district licenses that meet our need in terms of the number of students that need to be able to access software and applications and programs. And we still have need. We recognize that, and that technical support is going to have to continue through the summer. We're going to have to really look at, I've seen some of the devices that have come back and that have been swapped out. We're going to have to really look through our tech refresh what devices need to be replaced, augmented, or supplanted. But, we could not have done any of this without the IT team. I mean, they were just, their tireless work really helped to move us and support our at-home learning plan. Family engagement is the final bucket I want to talk about. And this slide just lays out or outlines the essential components of our at-home learning plan. Elementary, again, we started with the printing packets, and, we're keeping the weekly lessons, the secondary schedules and essential content, keeping that updated on our website, making our website even more user-friendly by using this more interactive design format, and our delivery of instruction is synchronous and asynchronous. And as you can imagine, there are challenges there too. And the challenges are mostly associated with dynamics, home dynamics, circumstances and situations. Sometimes working remotely, families who are home, they're balancing their work with their children's work and navigating, that online instruction, distance learning. And I've seen it with my own colleagues during our virtual meetings too. And many of our families are called out of the home and for long hours because they're considered essential workers. And then we've heard from families who are just trying to navigate. We've got multiple children in the different building levels. And so understanding that and staying in contact and having our schools reach out to them by phone or traditional ways and having to respond to multiple teachers has been challenging for families too, as we've heard. And then there's that constant worry about keeping up, falling behind. Tom Moore has had to respond to, hey, that's too much, that's not enough. Again, it's where that one size doesn't fit all. And then the digital literacy and technology divide has been something that's been quite a barrier. Ways that we've been responsive. I know that Gretchen has talked, ongoing about some of the challenges that students who receive special education have been experiencing and that families have been reporting. So we've really tried to be responsive to families at large and more individually. The virtual parent PD was something that was new. It was something that we recognized that we launched right into language like Google Meet and asynchronous and synchronous learning. And we just really didn't, kind of similar to how, Superintendent Morris said PTC, we just didn't really do a great job in the beginning of unpacking that. So we said, let's slow it down and let's try to be much more parent friendly in our communication, in our language. Video updates have been very appealing. And just kind of shows the true spirit of our teachers too. We've even done porch visits at safe distances, and sometimes those little ones just need to see their teachers' faces, and so they've been willing to do that. And as I mentioned before, we've really tried hard to keep our website user-friendly and up-to-date and sharing tools. Just like we want to put food on students' tables and smiles on their faces, we want to make sure that we're giving them the tools that they need to be able to productively engage in the teaching and learning. And so these are just a few of identified ongoing needs that we really need to be thoughtful about through the summer and into the fall with school reopening. And so some of these things we've already spoken to. Survey of students, getting their voices and their feedback and reactions to how this has worked out for them, what's working, what's not, what we need to do differently. And you've heard a little bit about our focused advisory and how we reimagine schools. And for all of our advisories, it'll be applying that equity lens. So I've said a lot, and I want to close. But what I want to share is that, ordinarily, first, I'm honored to be entrusted to lead this work. And ordinarily, I would bring to the in-person board table, our true heroes in this work. And so whenever someone says thank you to me, I feel like I'm photobombing their tireless work. And so before I close, I do want to recognize those colleagues and partners who are heroes and have been doing this work with lots of dedication, love, and commitment. Our nutrition services staff, they're out there, every day that we have the meal distribution sites open with a smile on their face, and they're frustrated because the masks, you can't see their smiles, so they speak their love through their hearts and through their eyes. And we're just so grateful for them. April was not kind weather-wise, and we had some strong wind and cold rain, and they still maintained, that warmth. And then our school nurses, when they came on, we were just so excited, and they gave us lots of good feedback and guidance about what our families need, wanted, and we're asking. And really being advocates for them, as well as our building custodians, keeping things safe and accessible on the inside as well as on the outside. Our school security at West Hartford Police Department, just the bonds that I've seen our teams form with them too. And then there's Carlos and Lewis, our van drivers, who they helped to form a connection with our families too. And they knew the shortcuts to a lot of the homes that we were going to. And we couldn't have done this, obviously, without our community volunteers. You'll see a familiar face there, Isabella and her mom, and there's a brother, Kenneth, in the back. It was an all hands on deck. And lots of other thank yous to give. And these are just a few more, and I'm sure, you always run the risk when you're thinking individual groups and people of missing someone. And so if I have, please know that I am grateful, and please charge it to my head, not my heart. My heart's a little broken right now. I do want to, before I close, I did have a picture that I really wanted to share of Superintendent Moore, but he'd probably fire me if I did. So I'll just quickly describe what that picture was. It was a picture of him holding he was holding a sandwich. I'm going to close out with this because you have to actually see me illustrate this. But this is a quote that he inspired me to add to tonight's presentation. It is by Dr. King. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. And I truly believe that too. Before I turn it over for questions and discussion, I'm going to bring it back. Oops, I wasn't supposed to show that picture. So I'm going to stop. So I want to describe that picture because now that he's been exposed, the story behind it is that, you know, he had said to me, Rosina, you know, worried about food allergies. And and I said to him, no, it's fine. It's safe. We've got that. We've got nut allergies covered. And he says, look, I only want the best for our students. And he asked me, like, how can I be sure that what we're serving is safe and good enough for our students? And I said, you can't unless you try it for yourself. And as someone who worries about kids with food allergies, he did, and he gave it a thumbs up. And, you know, I share all of that just to say, just to continue to characterize him as I always have. You know, Superintendent Moore is a fierce humanitarian. He has super high expectations, and he really has persisted throughout what I think is a test of his human spirit. And I'm really proud to, he's a tough boss, but I'm really proud to call him leader, mentor, and friend. And I do feel very confident that under his leadership, we will never go back to normal, because as my grandmother would probably say, normal just was never right. That's what I have. I'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that really comprehensive report. I am positive we're going to have some questions. So if you have any questions, please remember to put a question mark in the chat box. Really? Sean, and then Lorna.
I never like being first, but I guess I'll go. I just wanted to say thank you. And I hate speaking for people too, but I'm going to do it because I know that I think we all feel it, and that reading your report and seeing it here, it was very comprehensive. It was very detailed. We know you put a lot of work into it, and I just wanted to say thank you, and I'll leave the questions for everybody else.
All right. Lorna and then Amanda.
Good evening. I too want to thank you for your report. I will also share that my heart is heavy also. I said I wasn't going to do this. But you know what? Transparency sometimes speaks volumes. And I'm just going to be candid and real with that. The reason for my heavy heart is that we continue to have these conversations in terms of the climate of our country and our world. And certainly issues of the pandemic have been pronounced and have impacted us all. COVID-19 is something that we have experienced for the first time ever. However, racism is not. And that's why I very much respect the fact that the word anti-racist is being used. When a person says they're not a racist, well, that's great, but that's more of a passive approach. When you say you are anti-racist, that's where you are taking more of an active and assertive approach in responding to, addressing, and working to rectify it. So I thank you, Superintendent Tom, and I thank you, Board Chair Deb, for speaking up and speaking out about what is going on and how it's not right and how we need to do better. And I thank you for that, not only as a board member, but also as a person of color, because I think all too often people of color are expected to be the cheerleaders to cheer for something that we did not create. And so being candid as well, again, it's important for our colleagues of all races to speak up and speak out. And I very much appreciate the quote that you shared, Rosina. I also am fond of quotes, and I would like to share one also from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this speaks to the importance of not being silent, because silence is deafening. So for persons who may choose not to get involved or who may choose to turn off the station and not to want to deal with it, well, that's a luxury, because unfortunately there's some persons that have no choice but to deal with it. And as a parent who's had to have conversations with my children, again, that I at times say, darn, it's not fair, but it has to be had. Those conversations have to be shared. So in closing, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people." Please continue to speak up and speak out. And thank you again for all of your work.
Thank you, Lorna. Amanda.
I am just taking in everyone's comments and didn't want to rush to comment myself as I was trying to listen my full attention on both of you. And I have to say, going back to Rosina's report, that those are one, frankly, I don't know how you or any of the team has been able to sleep for the last few months, because the work that you're doing is round the clock. And, you know, we saw those early days, the nutrition services team out in all that weather, especially down in the Hannock area, you know, children coming in flip-flops in the rain with their scooters and trying to find food. And the humanity of that time, it's such a raw time. And just taking in your report as we read it the other day and now hearing it again, it's even hard to comprehend just how much is going on through the work that you're seeing. And I just want to be, if I were in the community right now, I would be wondering, especially if I were a Black mother or if I were someone of color in our community, wondering, what is my Board of Education thinking? What can I expect from them? And I think it's important that we're very clear. And so for my part, I'll be short so that it is clear. I wanted to just say that the letter that Superintendent Moore sent out about our district moving in the direction of an anti-racist capacity for the work that we do is something that I fully support, and I am in it for the long haul. Our district is a lead district, and our leadership will make a difference, and it will have exponential ripple effects, and that's something that we take very seriously. So I send my love and my respect to you as my colleagues and to the members of our community, particularly the members of our Black community. And I want you to know that you entrust us with your children's lives and safety and education. And I hope to make you know and trust that I will strive to be worthy of that in my role here. And I know that we are committed to that as a team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rosina, I want to thank you for all your hard work and your teams. It's been exceptional. I have the pleasure of serving on the board when Tom had recommended the Director of Diversity to us, and without hesitation, we all agreed. And I got to say, it was probably one of the best things that we've done for West Hartford, even though we're a leader in that, and not a lot of towns follow that lead. And it's just been, kind of a shining star for West Hartford, and it's been exceptional. I can't pretend to know how it feels during these times, but my heart goes out to everyone. There are good people in the world, and that will overcome by tenfold, and we will get through this, and we will be a better country for it. I'm sure of it. I hope that hope's not a strategy, but I know in my heart that we will be a better country for this, and that we will all come together. And it's sad for everyone. This isn't just. It's not. In fact, I don't really think of course, it's sad for everyone. It's not in just one community that people are dealing with. It's for everyone. So the work that you continue to do, Rosina, I appreciate it. I am hats off to Tom, his letter. I support that. And that we hired you before any of this ever happened for this position is just, I often say sometimes you're a leader and sometimes you have to follow. These are the times when we have to lead, and it's great for West Hartford that we have done this, and we are a leader in this environment, and I take my hat off and praise you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Rosina, I have a question. This is more of a practical nature, and I'll echo everyone else's notes of gratitude to you and everyone that you're working with to try to address these barriers that our families are facing across town to their success of the students. One of the questions I have is regarding staffing for grab and go over the summer. So assuming that the waiver is granted and we're able to provide the grab and go meals, are we looking to have, again, professional staff hand those out? Or if you had a crystal ball, would you predict that it's possible that we would be using community volunteers for that service?
Yeah, it's right now we are hearing from a few staff members who want to, and then people who have said, I just need to recharge. I need to reflect. I need to recharge. So we are going to probably be banking on community volunteers again. And the 200 that we had, we felt really good about. But again, it's the times are changing. Things are different. We're in a different place now. And so in those connections that have been formed, you can't replace that right now. It's, trust has been built. So that's something that we're really grappling with. And I share all of this. This is not everything. This is just the tip of the iceberg that we can see. We can't see what's beneath the surface. And so we just have to be really thoughtful in terms of staffing, who's at our sites and who's interacting with our families.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. And I know that members of our community are feeling a desire to pitch in some way. And so my prediction from my crystal ball is that you will be getting some phone calls and emails from people who want to try to help out any way they can. So good to know that could potentially be a possibility.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or thoughts to share at this time? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rosina. We will move on to routine matters and the financial report. And the first item is approval of the financial report for the period ending April 30, 2020. And I'll welcome Liz Hewitt, who I know is on the call somewhere. Seeing as I'm the only financial examiner of the board right now, I will take the opportunity to go through the financial report, and then I know Liz will be available for questions. And this was sent out in your packet and is available on our website. I don't know if it would be helpful to share on the screen, or if the packet is so small, I don't know if it's worth it. But I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, Liz. So this is the financial report for the period of time ending on April 30th. And you'll see that we are projecting a general fund balance of $1,595,000, which is a little higher than we were projecting last month. As a reminder, we are going to be putting that into our new non-lapsing account, which is a one-year non-lapsing account that was established for just this purpose by the town council a couple of weeks ago. So moving on to the next page, just to get a little bit more detail about that. This is the page with the general fund report by account, and just a couple of variances I wanted to point out. One is under transportation, which is line 5345. Obviously, you see a big change there of $1.1 million. We have resolved our bus contracts. The bus companies are still paying for their drivers, maintenance of the vehicles, et cetera, and we're expecting a savings of $1.1 million in the transportation line item. Underneath supplies, materials, and capital, we have purchased laptops and devices to support distance learning. We expect that we may need to distribute more of these in the fall, and because, well, depending on whether we are back in school or if there is any distance learning occurring. We also have software packages that until now have been free, and I think Paul's mentioned a number of them over the course of the last few meetings, and those have been very beneficial for helping to provide the distance learning. Those software packages have been free until now, but they are likely to cost money starting this fall, and so would like to buy those now so that we can get in when the getting's good. And we're also purchasing PPE, personal protective equipment, for when we come back into our schools. So plexiglass for our main offices, some outdoor education equipment, and masks, etc. So that is the big change in the supplies, materials, and capitals line. We can go to the next page. This is our grants report, and we don't have any changes to this page. We do expect to expend out all of the grants that are the ones below the line are the ones we need to expend by the end of this year. The state is likely going to give us an extension for a few months, but we don't think that we're going to need it. So the big change on this page is going to show up in a few months, and that's when we're going to see the additional money that West Hartford and all the other districts are getting through the new federal funding, providing extra money for education. So that'll show up on this page in a couple of months. Moving on to our special funds report. There's not a lot of changes here, just a few things that have shaken out over the last month or so. Again, we're not charging preschool tuition and haven't since March. And so that is why we have a loss in that line item. And finally, our nutrition services fund. This is unfortunately an area where we are seeing a loss, and we are projected to have a loss of about $350,000 by the end of June. This is simply a matter of scale. We're getting paid for our meals, but we're only serving, many fewer meals a day than we were serving when school was open, obviously. So we do have money in this account, and it's not like we're going to go into deficit because we have the money, but it's just a little bit of a letdown because we had finally turned this account around, and now we are where we are. So that's the financial report. Are there any questions? No questions. All right. Well, I will make a motion that we approve the financial report. And can I have a second? Second. I think it was Sean who got that in there. Yeah. And no, without any further discussion, all those in favor of accepting the financial report, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand to make it easy for counting purposes. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? And the ayes have it. Motion passes. Moving on to approval of minutes. The first item is approval of the minutes of the May 13th Special Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Special Board of Ed meeting from May 13th?
So moved.
Thank you, Amanda. And a second?
Second.
I got Mark on that one. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, if not, I'll try your minds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions?
Abstention.
One abstention, noted. Thank you. The ayes have it, and it's 6-1. Next, the approval of the minutes of the May 19th regular Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Amanda. And a second?
Second, Lorna Thomas Farquharson.
Thank you, Lorna. Any discussion on the May 19th minutes? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
One abstention, Liz Wilcox. So noted. Motion passes 6-1. Information and reports, board members, communication and reports. Number 1, reports from other boards and organizations. Does anyone have any reports from other boards and organizations? Okay. Number 2, other information and discussions. Sean.
Hi. Thank you. So I'll be stepping away from the Board of Education, as all the board members already know. I've spoken to them personally. I don't like to surprise people like this. So I'll be stepping away from the board for professional reasons. And if it's okay with you, Deb, I'd like to say a few things.
Sure.
Thank you. I'd like to say a little something about each board member, even though I've only served about a year. I thought I've gotten to know some of you more so than I've seen my own family members, given the circumstances. So I've gotten to know you fairly well. So anyways, Deb, thank you for being a great leader on the Board of Education. Thank you for helping me recognize roles and borders of a board member, and then also teaching me how to successfully possibly get around them. I appreciate your experience and your guidance. I think you're excellent for the Board of Education, and I'm glad you filled that role. Lorna, I felt I knew you before I joined the board because I watched you on several board meetings, just as I mentioned to Rob. It was like meeting a celebrity of some kind. And I always noted, my first observation was that you didn't speak too much. And now that I know you, it's that because you're a good listener. So I hope to emulate that. I think you're a great board member, and I value your advice that you've given me over the past year. Ari, I felt like you've been my partner in crime through this, especially the election season and joining the board. If a person could be a spirit animal, you would definitely be mine. So thank you. Mark, the thing I don't think the community realizes is how much you serve this community and how value your voice is to this board. I appreciate how you listen to the people and bring their voice to the table. So it's been an honor serving with you. Amanda, you are, I feel like, the soul of this board, and it's desperately needed because some of us tend to not show compassion, and you wear your heart on your sleeve, so to speak. So thank you. All of you play a certain role within the caucus there that is important for the functioning of the board. And Liz, it was a pleasure to call you and get to know you briefly, but as you come in, I am going out, so I expect you to do big things. And I have high hopes for you. And thank you for serving. One thing I didn't realize is that there is many more meetings beyond this one. So for the public, I wish you the best of luck, Liz. Whether you're caucusing or in subcommittee or liaisoning or whatever you want to call it, I hope you do really well, and I appreciate your effort to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then lastly, to the students, I appreciate you guys serving. I know you guys run for an election in your school, and you won. And I don't know if you realize what you're getting into, but you probably put in more hours than the rest of us because you have to complete this and your schooling. But more than that, I apologize for the circumstances that you're serving under. And I hope you encourage your successors to be as vocal as you have been. I know we've gotten into some pretty interesting discussions, I'll call them, at the board level, and I loved hearing you speak up. I think you really spoke really well for your classmates, and I don't think they're watching, considering there's 9 other people in this call, but I know that I really value your input into the board discussions because you're why we're all here. So thank you for that. And Kenya, good luck as an educator. I think you're going to do great in the short time I've gotten to know you. And I hope to welcome you to the workforce very soon. So to Tom and his team, thank you guys for always providing, and tonight is a perfect example of that, the most detailed, above and beyond reports that a board could ever ask for. So I wanted to thank you from one professional to another that we, the board, really do see the time and effort you put into these reports and how you go above and beyond. And there's so many small decisions that you make that people don't realize that other districts don't get the benefit of. For example, one tonight is, I know several districts that did not provide weekend food. And when I was handing out food at Whiting Lane, you should have seen the kids' and parents' faces for that we had thought of providing food on a Saturday and Sunday. And somebody in your office made that decision. We'll go ahead and say it was you, Rosina, because it probably was. And I know that small things like that at 50 South Main or virtual are why we love West Hartford and your team that you assembled, Tom. And lastly, to Tom, thank you. I mentioned a lot of positive things about you in the past couple months, but one thing I learned through this was that you wear multiple hats. I knew one or two of them coming into this. I didn't realize that you probably have 50 hats, but the great thing about you is that you wear them all really well. And you're definitely the superintendent that we need at this point in many ways. So I know you're going to get a lot of emails in the coming months, especially the board members will. We're going to not make somebody happy, but what the public doesn't realize is that we're very lucky to have you and your team that you put together. So I think that's all I have. To the public, it's obvious that our schools are more than we paid for. They are essential to our communities. They are filling roles that we never imagined. And this board has some difficult decisions ahead, especially when it comes to the budget. So I don't envy the decisions you'll have to make, but I'm certainly going to be supportive. I'm not going away, but I do have to step away. So I'm happy to help you in short term, ways that I can. But anyways, that being said, thank you for allowing me to serve.
Thank you. Mark, you put a question mark in. Was that for right now? Or did I miss that from before?
No, it's, well, it was from before, but I'll take the opportunity to do 2 question marks here. I want to thank Sean for his service to the town of West Hartford. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and I appreciate people stepping up. And you really took it to heart. You brought a teacher's perspective to it, and that's always very, very helpful. So that was very, it was very it was well respected on the board, and just your time commitment that you took, and we appreciate it. And I said this to you on our phone call. I don't know how many Board of Ed members in the United States, and I'm going to say 0 with the exception of us, that were able to have a Board of Ed meeting in a delivery room, or not necessarily a delivery room, but in the hospital with a newborn. That was something that I will never forget. When I was in Iraq, I had the advantage of having some technology that other soldiers didn't. And I gave my room up for a night so that he can have a baby virtually with his wife in Iraq, and that was in 2007. So it kind of reminisced that, and it was cool. And I don't think that there's many Board of Ed members out there that can say that. So we have an advantage over the rest. Thank you for your service. Prematurely congratulate you on your new position or wherever, I don't know if that's whatever, but congratulations, and that's awesome, and that you will still be a cog in the wheel, if I can say that. So thank you. And if I could take a minute too, if you don't mind, Deb, just a little bit to introduce, that was really a couple question marks over there. So I want to kind of introduce Liz a little bit to the board, so that kind of everybody knows her. She's resided in West Hartford with her husband since 1996, and his husband's name is Bill. 3 children, Matt, who's a senior, Abby, a sophomore in college, a senior in college and a sophomore in college, and Kate, who's a senior in high school. Liz earned her law degree from Western New England University School of Law, and she earned a BA from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, Tom Moore, and in English and psychology. And she was admitted to the Connecticut Bar and has worked in legal roles as well as in insurance industry and financial services industries. And she serves on the Town Conservation and Environmental Commission. In the past, she's also been an active member for the Bugby, Bristow, St. Tim's Hall PTC boards, where she gets the acronyms. And having served in many capacities in each of these schools, Liz is well versed in school curriculum and planning and policy. She's also a longstanding volunteer with the Bridge Family Center, serving on the Children's Charity Ball Committee with the Bridge, and facilitated many valuable programs offered to the youth of West Hartford, including the Family Resource Center. And she's also a West Hartford Parent Leadership Training Institute. And I just really want to welcome Liz to the board and introduce you to her. And I know this board is very welcoming, Liz, and they will wrap your arms around you and get you through the bumps in the road, as we all know that we have. So welcome.
Thank you for that welcome.
Thank you, Mark. And yes, the board has been so welcoming so far. I appreciate all of you who have reached out. And I'm just really looking forward to jumping right in and getting to work at all these difficult tasks at hand.
All right. Amanda.
Okay, well, Mark, thank you for introducing Liz, because I've known Liz for over a decade now, and I know I can attest to the fact that we are welcoming a very strong colleague who will be prepared and compassionate and a very, very productive thought partner as we do the important work of this community. So welcome to you, Liz. Sean! We spend so much time together as a board that my husband now always says Sean Payson. Like, it took him forever to not call you Sean Passan, that it now always refers to you by both names. So I just want to thank you so much. That when we started our election time together, when your name hit the community, my neighbor across the street was one of your students, and she was like, Mr. Payson, I can't believe it's Mr. Payson. And all the kids were so excited that you were going to be on the Board of Education because you are such an incredible teacher for them. And having the perspective of a long-standing teacher on our team has been incredibly valuable, and I appreciate the many hours that we've spent as a group challenging each other's thinking and really digging into this work. Thank you for taking it so seriously, and I wish you all the best. I know that we will see you constantly because you're so engaged with this work. I can't imagine that we wouldn't be seeing you all the time in some capacity or another. So thank you for serving.
Thank you. Ari?
I want to welcome Liz, first of all. I hope that you are as excited to be on the board as we are to have you. And I really look forward to being able to get to know you and for us to work together. So welcome to the board. And I can't hug you right now because, social distancing, but we will welcome you with open arms. Just not right now. At least 6 feet apart. And then Sean, I don't know what to say when we discuss this unfortunate situation. I think you heard, my entire house heard me scream. And my son came running upstairs because he didn't know what was happening, and I told him to go away. He could not know the information. But I think that in and of itself really expressed how sad I am that you need to make this decision. I too consider you my partner in crime. I don't want to say crime, but you know, from the very beginning, you, Amanda, and I thought of the three of us as really working together, having very similar interests and passions and energy for the work that we were preparing to do. And I think that our campaigning together spoke to that. As I said when we all met, I don't know if you're not running, if I'll be running again, because I don't know if it'll feel, I'm kidding, Deb, but I'm just saying, I really enjoyed our campaigning together. So I will miss you very, very much. I do know that you will stay involved in some way or another, and that we will still hear from you. But I did really enjoy, I loved having someone on the board who really looked at issues and processed issues through an educator's lens, because I think that that's really important, and getting the other side of the the other perspective. We're looking at it on the children and the families, and you really kind of helped us to put things in perspective from the teacher's perspective. So I really appreciate that, and I will just miss your energy and enthusiasm, and I would be honored to be your spirit animal. So, Lorna?
Hello. First off, I as well want to echo the welcoming to Liz. Liz, welcome to the board. Very much glad to have you a part of the team, and something that has been a thread throughout my tenure here has been, regardless of where we come from in terms of what side of the aisle we're on, it's quite clear that all of us are here for a shared purpose and working for the betterment of our young people. So glad to have you a part of the team and sharing in that same regard. And Sean, to you, saying farewell to your role as a board member, but not saying goodbye. I don't like to say goodbye to anyone. It certainly has been a pleasure working and serving with you. I did not have the advantage of getting to bond with you prior to you officially coming onto the board, but nonetheless, since you have been a part of the board, certainly have appreciated and valued your presence and your voice. Certainly with your educational background, that has allowed us to balance out the discussion and certainly look at questions and ideas from a different angle and perspective, and very much recognize and appreciate your calm tone throughout. So thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your presence. Wish you all of the best in your next chapter in life. And again, just going to say, see you later.
Thank you. And I'll just chime in. Liz, I'm really looking forward to working with you and learning about your passions for our public school system. So thank you for agreeing to serve. And Sean, what has been mentioned yet is that you're also coming at this from the perspective of a parent of young children. And the rest of us on this board don't have little tiny kids in our house anymore. And so we're coming at things from a slightly different perspective than you are. And I really appreciate having your perspective, both as an educator, but also as a dad to Cora and Holden, which, by the way, you did tell us you would probably bring Holden into this board meeting at some point. So have another couple of lines on this agenda before we get to the adjournment. So I'm hoping to see that little one. If you can swing it. Don't wake him or anything, but if you can swing it, we'd love to see him. So thank you. And also as a coach, by the way, I think that's also been a really helpful perspective that you've brought to the table a number of times this year. So stay in touch. I know you will, and I'll look forward to hearing from you in the future. All right, with that, let us move to the reports from student board representatives. And this is the last report from both of you as well. So Isabella, we'll have you go first tonight.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. Students are starting to return to the building to collect personal belongings. Mr. Zatoun sent out information to the student body about this last week. I'm told that the graduation plans are well underway and we will be receiving details soon. Also, the administration is discussing ways to better support students of color. Thank you to Dr. Haskins for speaking about student voices earlier. I have been a part of the West Hartford Public School District since kindergarten, and as a student of color, I appreciate the position of active anti-racism that Mr. Moore in the West Hartford Public School System has taken, and we do need to do better. I completely agree that an important aspect is to include student voices in the conversation and to actively seek student feedback about everyday experiences that we have in school environments with other students, teachers, and members of the administration. It's important for students to have a safe space to share information and experiences they have regarding racism, microaggressions, and all other forms of discrimination as we as a district move forward to create a more equitable learning environment. Students in our schools can help build these systems. As this is my last meeting as the Hall student representative, I want to thank Mr. Moore, the board, and the Hall student body for this incredible opportunity. I have learned so much this past year, and I will take this experience with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella. And you truly have been such a dedicated representative of the Hall student body. And we've really enjoyed, and I know Sean brought this up earlier, but we've really enjoyed having your perspective as part of the conversation. So whoever is the new representative from Hall, and I don't think you guys have had elections yet, but whoever that new person is, I hope that you will take him or her under your wing a little bit and encourage them to speak their mind and bring forward the thoughts and ideas of the students at Hall. And thank you for everything that you do, and please stay in touch with us.
Thank you, I will.
Kenya.
Good evening. So the school year is wrapping up and seniors have received their caps and gowns yesterday. We have dates scheduled for next week in order to drop off any textbooks and to clean out our lockers. Also, the graduation ceremony will take place a day before Hall's, Wednesday, June 24th at the Farmington Polo Grounds at 6 p.m. There's also a car caravan or a parade on June 15th, and more details will come about that. Grade 11 and 12 awards were also presented through a video made by administration, and seniors received their awards in their package along with their cap and gowns. The Unified Theater performance was last Friday, and it brought a great sense of unity among us. It was beautiful. Congratulations to our students who are now members of the International Thespian Society. And students have arranged protests for Sunday at 2 p.m. in the West Hartford Center in order to bring awareness to the current situation of our country. We're currently waiting to hear back from the chief of police and the mayor. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't speak on what is happening. Not only do I represent my school, but I represent my peers of color. And so it's only right to voice their emotions and thoughts at this time and recap the conversation in which we had earlier today, as Dr. Haskins mentioned. Conard embraces diversity. And that means bigger than just 47% of our students are diverse. What does it mean to embrace diversity? It means to open yourself up to an individual, regardless of their differences, and be willing to hear their experiences. Be willing to empathize with their suffering, not fully understand their suffering, because unfortunately in life, there's just some things you won't be able to understand unless you go through them. So we can be compassionate, and we can ask ourselves, how could we help? What can I do to support you? One of the first steps of change is having a conversation. And I think right now is just, we're tired. We've been having the conversation. We've been swept under the rug. And so we're done being passive. Some people may say, it seems like history is repeating itself. It seems like we're taking a step backwards. But logically thinking, you could only take step backwards if you took steps forward. We haven't taken steps forward. Okay, the emotion, the brutality, the pain that Black people have been feeling has been swept under the rug, a passive slap on the wrist. Now with George Floyd, that was a trigger. George Floyd was the last straw. The wound is that in George Floyd, we see ourselves. We see our brothers. We see our best friends, our fathers. And when someone is in pain, you don't get to justify the extent to which they're hurting. You don't get to justify how they cope, especially in this case scenario. What is happening today is what I read about in my textbooks, is what I wrote my essays on, okay, is what I watched documentaries on. Am I disappointed? Yes. Am I frustrated? Of course. But one thing I can't lose is being grateful. And it's like, how could you be grateful in a time like this? You need to look at it like this. We've been chosen to live in this time period of change. Okay, justice is being demanded right in front of our eyes. This is an opportunity to ask yourself, what can I do in my position with the platform that I have to help out somebody else who may be different from me? And my make a change may be different from her make a change or his make a change, because we each have a different duty. We each represent a different part of the community. We touch different groups of people. One of the things that I told my mom, convincing her to let me protest, was when I grow up and my children open their textbooks to the year 2020, and they're reading about everything that happened, and they come to me and they ask, Mom, how did you feel? What did you do? The same way we go to our parents and ask them about my 9/11. Am I going to be comfortable with telling my own child that it didn't affect me directly, so it wasn't my fight, so I didn't do anything? Or am I going to tell them that silence is being complicit, that silence is siding with the oppressor, that I sat on the floor of my room painting a poster for the protest in tears because I know that I'm fighting for something larger than myself. I'm fighting so that when my best friend, when my brothers, when my father, when they walk down the street, one day they could feel safe. That one day they are capable. They feel capable, that they have the same opportunities in life in the classroom to be as successful. That they don't have to prove their innocence because human is written in their skin. I understand that if I want to make my future better, I first need to better myself. We first need to educate ourselves. Ignorance cannot combat with ignorance, and it's simple. For closure, the youth is the backbone of this movement. The youth is the backbone of this country. And so we need to ask ourselves, how are we going to prepare our students so that when they leave this bubble, when they leave West Hartford Public Schools, they go out into the real world, they're able to have those conversations. They're able to point out discrimination at its core, at its root, and defend their brothers and sisters. Lastly, we need to acknowledge how we are a part of the problem by understanding where we went wrong. By not educating yourself, you're part of the problem. By not teaching your kids, you're a part of the problem. So as Mr. Moore said, the time is now. We each have a choice to do better. Let's start unraveling the problem, having the conversations, changing the curriculum, unlearning the biases, and relearning love. Let us educate ourselves. And I say that all to say thank you. This is my last meeting as student board representative, my last few weeks being a senior at Conard, my last year being in the West Hartford public school system, a system that's willing to have those conversations to build those foundations, future educators of diversity. And I want to thank you, Mr. Moore, for being the leader you are, not only in our school district, but in our state and in our nation. Conard and Hall always have these top rankings, but it's because of your leadership, because of your administrative team. And so I want to thank them as well, because it is so clear how hard their work is reflected in the classrooms and in the families that are supported. It was a privilege being on the board, so I want to thank the members, because I got to see the behind the scenes of what makes West Hartford Public Schools have such quality education. And what was said before was the advancements were not enough. Absolutely. The advancements we've made are not enough. But I would also like to remind you that there's families like mine who moved here specifically to have a better education. So I think that just speaks for itself. So thank you again, and know that there's always more work to be done.
Thank you, Kenya. And that is how you use your platform. Thanks for showing us how it's done and for all the work that you've put in this school year. And best of luck to both of you in the future. Amanda.
I just want to thank you so much for illustrating just now the whole point of education and everything that you just embodied to speak to us so clearly and so concisely is exactly why we exist, to provide education. I have to wonder if that even felt brave for you, because getting to know you and Isabella, when we look over at you at the meetings, you know what's inside you. You know how you want to use it. And you use the gifts that you have for such purpose and with such quiet confidence when necessary, and with such vocal confidence when necessary. And when you step off of that, I know you're not going to be on a physical platform on the stage, but when you move on from this into your next stage of life, you're going to constantly be assessing when and how am I going to use my voice? Is it going to be calm? Is it going to be loud? How can I best reach people? And both of you have voices that reach people. When you speak, we listen. And I want you to know, and I'm sure that I speak for everyone on our team, that we heard you and we hear you. And I will see you on Sunday for sure, standing off to the side if it is a student protest, to respect that. But we hear you. You have made a difference with your engagement on this board and your participation. There have been so many times when we've been in the midst of difficult and heated conversations where, in spite of that, you still spoke calmly and affirmed exactly what you wanted to say. And when we all went off into the world from high school to college, there was this sense that our future was far ahead of us, and there was some time for us to grow and decide how we wanted to function in the world. And both of you you've already started. And I'm so hopeful about our future, knowing that you are already using the gifts that you have to move people to action and to show them what's possible. So thank you for taking so much time from your heart to talk to us. We hear you. I hope that you trust that we are going to continue to help build a world that you deserve to be in. And we thank you so much for what you have given to this community through your service, and for the love that you just put into everything that you just said. Both of you are magnificent. You will be strong women leaders. And I know that we will see you changing our world and you are the absolute best embodiment of what this school system could do. And I know that you want us to do more and to do better, and we will.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We are going to move on to future business, announcement of future meeting dates. We don't have anything here on the agenda, but we do expect we may have a special meeting called for some time between now and the beginning of September. So more to come.
I can guarantee it.
At least one, at least one. Is there a request for future agenda items that is not what will school look like in the fall? Other future agenda items? No? Okay. Are there comments from any visitors? Okay. We do not have an executive session, and so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Sean, seconded by?
Second, Thomas Park.
Thank you, Lorna. Meeting is adjourned at 9:40 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody.